Southwest Florida's newest game in town brings you all the NFL action that you're asking for. Lloyd and Kevin have all the news, updates, trades, and rumors from the NFL. Lloyd Vance's Insider Football on Sports Radio 102.9 The Game starts now.
Lloyd, all right, just let me. All right. Lloyd Vance Insider Football is back on 1029 The Game and the Coastal Sports Network. So glad everybody can be with me. Of course, my machine had a glitch as soon as I was meant to join everybody, but another great week talking about National Football League. We're only days away from the kickoff of the season with the Ravens and the Chiefs coming up. How you doing this evening? Kevin Midgette is my tag team partner. He's here with us, and we are going to also talk to established veteran NFL writer Mike Tanier. I'm not sure who he's with right now, but he's from Football Outsiders in the past, New York Times. He's been all over the place. So we're very glad to have him joining us around 8:15 or so. Kevin, what's going on, man? You ready for the season?
It's on now. There's nowhere to hide. There's nowhere to run with these games. They force feed you until the NFL season starts. It's like, let's do this now. I don't have to watch some guy that I will never see play in an NFL game that matters. It's time for the real guys to get out there, and everyone's got to be super excited for this right now.
Yeah, Kevin, normally you and I go through all the games and everything, but these last preseason games, I watched enough of them. They were pretty much terrible. It was like, why are they even playing these games? I watched a lot of the Eagles and the Vikings, and the Eagles' effort was, if you want to call it that, it was just non-existent. It was funny because Merle Reese at the end of the broadcast was like, you know how they say if you get any reproduction of this, you have to get permission of the Eagles, blah blah blah, NFL. He's like, I don't know why anybody would want to reproduce this thing because it was just, it was fours versus each other. So a lot of these teams, particularly the Eagles, are setting a trend to like a lot of these frontline teams. They're not playing anybody, and especially in this third preseason game, most of them have seen enough of their guys, and they pretty much know their roster going into tomorrow. We'll go over that in a second. Tomorrow's a big cut down day around the National Football League. 90 players down to 53. Teams can also set a 16-man roster, and of those 16 players, 6 of them can be veteran type guys. So typically that's a younger guy trying to work his way up in the lineup, but some of these older guys may end up in practice squads as well. So, what are you thinking in terms of going into cut down day around the league? I always remember a veteran guy telling me he got cut by Buddy Ryan, and he said, "Son, it's time for you to go on to your life's work. Your football playing days are over. And that's what a lot of these guys are going to hear, unfortunately, and a lot of shattered dreams. But what are you thinking in terms of cut down day? And for me, it's just like, all right, it's time to get ready to play the real games. And unfortunately, they pretty much know, I'd say, probably the top 42 guys on their roster. So like the last 11 guys or so on a roster, they're trying to decide. And in special teams, ability definitely has a big deal in these cuts.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. You're going to see these list of names that come out from all these teams, and out of the whole NFL, you might recognize 7 names on there. And it's a lot of times some of these guys will get picked up. There's some retread action on it. It's almost like buying a scratch-off ticket if you pick this guy up. It's like, all right, maybe we can get lightning in a bottle. Maybe we can get something out of this guy, you know. But you're right. It's like a lot of broken dreams and a lot of guys realizing what their next step in this life is.
Yeah, and everybody wants
I
to.
I think.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, a
No,
lot
I
of
just think
guys.
with a lot of the younger guys,
Yeah,
they actually will have the opportunity now to go on to all these other smaller leagues and everything else. They got a taste of what it was like to be on an NFL, even preseason roster, put on the uniform, play in these NFL stadiums, and maybe for some of these guys, that'll be the driving force that makes them try, invest in their skill set even more to get back to the NFL.
yeah, and you and I have been on this show year round, and that's been a great thing, So we do get to see a lot of these guys come back now in the UFL and some other opportunities right here in the United States. I think, some players I know in particularly, you think of like the Detroit Lions kicker. He did very well in the UFL, and now he was signed. He's going to be the Lions kicker going into the season. So, it can give other opportunities around there. And you're right. Most of the names will be guys you're like, oh, okay, I remember him from, watching him on some Saturday afternoon in a Big Ten game or something like that. But, some of the names you're just like, oh, okay. And, everybody in terms of players, they want to kind of emulate Victor Cruz, who was a guy who was cut a couple times by the Giants, and then he kind of broke into stardom after preseason. But I think a lot of times in terms of these roster spots, politics comes into play. And I remember talking to guys after typically I would go to that last preseason game, and the guys like the Eagles would play the Jets, and the guys that owned the bubble would kind of know, and they'd be like, well, I'm kind of behind such and such who was drafted, or they gave him a big contract. So where I always say follow the money. So it's going to be interesting. Tomorrow's cut down day on August 27th, 4 o'clock Eastern, and we'll just see who's going to come out. And I want to throw a couple names at you guys that I wrote down here that possibly could be on the bubble, and it's going to be interesting to see. Okay, did they land there? Did they get traded? First, talk about the trade that just went down. You had Malik Willis going from Tennessee to the Green Bay Packers to kind of be a backup. They had Sean Clifford, who was their backup from Penn State, and I know from watching him a lot in college, he there's not much there. I'll just put it that way. What are we thinking in terms of Malik Willis going over to the Green Bay Packers?
I think it was a move to Tennessee. They were in a numbers game right there. They had 3 guys at that position. They needed to get some sort of value for Malik Willis. Obviously, he was a third man out in that rotation. Clifford, Green Bay knows, isn't the guy to be the backup if something should happen to Jordan Love. But at the same time, is Malik Willis going to be up to speed by the time the Eagles and Packers play in South America? That's the question. Because they drafted the kid in the 7th round. His name escapes me at the moment this past year. But they have to go with somebody who can hop in there if something does happen to Jordan Love.
Yeah, and then you're always a hit away. You just saw it last year. Aaron Rodgers 4 snaps and he was out. And one other name, a couple names I went through at your potential cuts, and I see Mike Tanier. We'll bring him on in a couple minutes. We'll ask him about this. James Bradbury, the Philadelphia Eagles. Now I've been watching him a lot in camp. There was one particular play in against the Patriots where he got sucked in. He's playing safety, which I think he's miscast there, and he got beat very badly on the play. And a lot of people are saying, you're starting to wonder, is he going to make the Eagles? So what do you think Bradbury's chances are of surviving tomorrow?
I believe it's going to be one of the situations where the Eagles are hoping they can make a trade to get a late round draft pick, perhaps, just not to cut him, just for him to go. But sometimes they think people, teams, organizations at this point. So what do you do with this situation? Do you carry him? Do you bring him around still? Or do you cut ties at that point? He can't play safety. He's a slower cornerback. I believe it's time to part ways in that time.
Yeah, and then you look at One other one I'll throw at you is the Broncos. They seem to have a glutted running back, and P. Ryan, who's been there, he was a good running back for the Bengals. Scored a lot of touchdowns pass, but he seems he might be the odd man out there in Denver. Do you think he survives?
I do not. I think if you have a healthy Javonte Williams and you have McLaughlin also, who they're kind of high on as well for the second run, an injury. That's the only reason you're carrying him. And I don't think that's the kind of guy you carry in that situation.
Yeah, totally agree there. All right. Well, why don't we bring in Mike Tanner? I see he's in the waiting room. He's in the green room, folks. I know Mike Tanner, a long time, great guy. He called me years ago for a piece he was doing, I think, on African American quarterbacks. He knew I had helped with the book Third and a Mile, and I helped him out with that. Mike's been bounced around, New York Times, Football Outsiders. Now, Mike, where are you now? If you want to give your plug right up front, where are you working, and where can everybody find your great writing? I know you're doing a podcast with our buddy. We'll talk about that in a second.
I am doing a podcast with Matt Lombardo, and both of us are now on Substack. I am self-employed right now. It's called the Two Deep Zone, and it is on Substack. And I'm doing all the things I did at Football Outsiders in the past, some of the things I did at the New York Times in the past, just covering the NFL from all angles, from the statistical analytical angle, from the humor angle, from the historical angle. But I get to be my own boss. And the company I work for doesn't go out of business. Two things that are wonderful in our industry. So on Substack, MikeTanier.com, or just look for the Too Deep Zone, TOO, Too Deep, like that girl you dated in college, not like the having your safeties back, in case you're worried about a bomb.
Yeah, it's great. So Kevin and I are very glad to have Mike Tanner here on 102.9 The Game and the Coast Sports Network. I mean, Mike has great writing out there, and sometimes some snark, but I think he does a great job. And it's tough, I know, in our role. We're supposed to be diplomatic, and some guys get their feelings hurt. I still remember one general manager for the Eagles. People probably who knows who it is in the past. He didn't particularly like some of the stuff I wrote or said about the Eagles.
Oh yeah,
initials may have been JB, but we'll move on. You know what I mean? So.
I get some angry people come back at me, and all I can say is when you're doing jokes, make sure you're punching above your weight at a target that can handle it. You make your jokes about Aaron Rodgers, not ideally some guy who's about to get cut, somebody who is really fighting for their job. And when you do that, it's safe, harmless. If the feelings are hurt, they can buy and sell us 5,000 times. They'll be fine.
There you go. And Mike, Kevin and I were just talking about tomorrow's cut down day. And I remember one veteran guy telling me, he said, Buddy Ryan told him, it's time for you to go on to your life's work, son. And that's kind of the way he told him. He said, look, maybe you have to look at some opportunities other than playing football. So just talk a little bit about cut down day. Now I know that the practice squad's up to 16 and they can put some veterans on there, but just talk about how that goes.
Right. The practice squad is up to 16 now. There's now I think a total of 9 or 10 or 11 or 12 days until the start of the regular season. So cut down day is this very anxious churn. Okay. Some guys get cut. You guys mentioned Tim Patrick. I know, or you were talking about Perrine.
Oh, that's a good one too. Yeah.
That's a good one. Or Perrine from the Broncos. He gets cut. I would imagine he gets cut. The phone rings. It's his agent, or the phone rings. 4 or 5 different teams are calling him. You're a very useful, well-regarded backup in the NFL. Someone's going to pick you up probably. Meanwhile, there's that kid who makes the 53. Everybody else got called in to coach, bring your playbook. That kid's fine. Got to worry about Samaje Perrine or Tim Patrick or somebody like that coming in, taking his job. So you can't rest comfortably, probably for 72 hours now, probably until really you get to the weekend, and that's when it gets hammered home. So there's an incredible amount of churn. We're going to see more quarterbacks, third-string quarterback types getting traded for 7th-round picks. And we're going to hear a lot of names that get cut, and then 48 hours later, we're going to hear their name is back on some other team's practice squad.
Yeah, and that's a big thing, as you said. They're working on probably the bottom portion of their roster. I was just saying with Kevin, they probably know the first 42 to 45 guys are going to be on the team, and a lot has to do with where you're drafted, how much money you're making. That's always going to factor into this type of situation. So, something to watch. And uh, as we move along, I'll start with Kevin. The big contract came out today, Kevin, and then we'll get Mike's take on it. CeeDee Lamb finally gets it done. 4 years, 136 million, $38 million signing bonus, 100 million guaranteed. Is he worth it? And is he going to live up to that? And when's he going to pull his hammy? Because we know that happens quite often. These guys miss camp.
The question of what is he worth it or not, the market defines what someone's worth at this point. The market keeps going up year after year after year. So at this point, you lock up CeeDee Lamb, who's young enough that you can grow with your next quarterback. And let's be honest, there will be a next quarterback. It's not going to be Dak. So for that money, that's money well spent because you don't know where the market's going to go the next year and the year after that. This year, though, it's always interesting, though, with some players, when they get their money. I'm just saying in the CeeDee Lamb situation, he has a quarterback in a lame duck year. It depends on the effort of Dak Prescott is what you're going to get out of CeeDee Lamb this year. It's going to be interesting to watch, that's for sure.
Yeah, Mike, what do you think? There are a lot of holdouts this camp, and I always feel like, my son was saying on this show a couple weeks ago, he said the NFL's getting like the NBA. Well, I still don't think the players have the hammer enough like they do in the NBA. So what do you think in terms of this holdout, and is it going to be good for the Cowboys?
I like what you said, or I have trepidatious about what you said, where he pulls a hammy, and then the next 6 to 8 weeks are like, well, I probably should have been out there on the practice field a little more often instead of going full speed for the first time, in the season opener. Worth the money. It's like Kevin said, this is the contract. You need these receivers of the skill. He's going to get his touches. He's going to get his catches. He's going to get his yards. He's going to be a handful. He's going to be a headache. I look at the idea of what happened if Jerry Jones didn't play hardball over $1 million a year. Sounds like they were fighting over $1 million a year. Big money for you and me, not big money for Jerry Jones.
Right.
What if they hadn't been doing that and this got done in, when did A.J. Brown get his contract? March? February?
Yeah.
Somewhere in there, how many millions do you think Jerry could have saved if it came before Justin Jefferson, it came before these other contracts? Instead, penny wise, dollar foolish, he fights. It's fine right now. He's worth it. It's when they have to stack all these other contracts, and heaven forbid they try to pay Dak right now. All that money's going to accumulate, and the Cowboys are going to be in this situation a year or two from now, if they keep Dak, where they say, oh, you know what, we can't build the roster we want because we overpaid a little for CD, waited too long on Micah, overpaid him, and then if we paid Dak, you're back where you started from, where you didn't optimize your salary cap.
Yeah, and the salary cap, we know, went up this year $30 to $40 million. So, it looks good at the time, but as soon as Justin Jefferson got that 4-year, $140 million, 100 guaranteed contract, all the receivers wanted to be in that same line. And it's always like, I'm just as good as him. I'm better than him. I want my money too. So, the Cowboys are in a precarious situation. I've been saying all along, I don't think they re-sign Dak. I think they move on from him. What do you think in terms of Trey Lance's preseason? He had some good, some bad. And could they move forward with him? I know they even still have Cooper Rush there.
5 interceptions is a lot of bad in one game.
Yes.
I wanted the best for Trey Lance. I wanted to see Trey Lance succeed. We're in a situation with Trey Lance where not you, not Kevin, none of us, no one on the internet, no one on YouTube has ever seen Trey Lance be a successful quarterback at the NFL level or at the college level. Unless you claim that you were out there 2019 really scouting North Dakota State, and you weren't. Don't pretend that you were, because even if you were, you don't know how to scout a quarterback who's playing Montana and North Dakota and these teams every week. You did not see it in 2020 because the season was canceled. You did not see it in 2021 when he was on the bench, etc. We're kind of in this more of a wish than a real belief that this guy's ever going to turn it around. I hate to say that, but he had this entire preseason to kind of like take the reins, claim the backup job, be the heir apparent. And what you got was, a 5 interception game against the Chargers backups. It's hard to sugarcoat that.
Yeah, and he's on a 1-year deal, so
yeah,
we're going to see it. And they traded for him, so right now it's looking like he wasn't worth the squeeze. And like I said, they have Cooper Rush ahead of him, and the whole Dallas situation is so fluid. It's crazy because just give me your take on. I think they're not going to move forward at all till they bring a football mind in there. Jerry Jones is the general manager. I mean, come on. He needs to have somebody run that side of the house.
Oh yeah, they need to now. A credit to Jerry and Steven, they keep making the playoffs. They strike gold once in a while. They get these guys like Micah. They discover these cornerbacks like Deron Bland and Trevon Diggs, and these guys step up, etc. And you wind up winning a bunch of games. You wind up being better than the Giants every year, who are supposed to have football minds running the team. So they've got that going for it. But it's clear they keep hitting that ceiling. They keep hitting that ceiling of they don't have football operation guys who can really scour the bottom of their depth chart and come up with good players. They don't handle the salary cap well. They don't handle contract negotiations well. There's this rolling distraction, and you heard, I think it was Dalton Schultz in the offseason talking about trying to lift weights, and there's a glass partition, and Jerry's bringing dignitaries in to watch the players lift weights.
Oh, jeez.
This is not conducive to winning. This is not help a team win Super Bowl. This is a millionaire. Like, look at the guys I got, like running like a zoo or something like that. So, yeah, if they're going to have any success behind, hey, we made the playoffs, anything beyond that, it's going to need a more serious football operation. And I don't know how you get that while Jerry is still running things.
Yeah, and as you said, they've won 12 games for 3 straight seasons, but it's just like, okay, the dam's got to break at some point. And these playoff losses at home, disappointment after disappointment. Unfortunately for my brother, he's a Cowboys fan. Hey, he can cry in his beer about it. Now, Mike, we got it. Kevin's on. He's Philly Kevin. So, Kevin, what do you think in terms of the Cowboys? I think I know the answer.
I definitely think this is a regression season for them. They have done well making the playoffs, but I also think there's Washington's getting better in that division as well. I think they might be a little better. I just think that they've played long enough with the hand that they've had, and they've been successful at it, but they didn't do anything to make themselves better. That running back group they have in there, I have no faith in that running back group whatsoever. I was actually sort of happy yet not happy. I got to watch the Cowboys-Chargers game watching Trey Lance. He just threw bad balls. And for someone that you're looking forward to taking over the reins from Dak Prescott, he's not the guy. So they're going to have to go. They might be one of those teams, they might have to take some big losses to get a good draft pick to get a quarterback to come in there after Dak. Just my thoughts.
Yeah. By the way, they're flying Dalvin Cook in for the running back position. I think Shady McCoy. No. If Dalvin Cook doesn't make it, they'll bring Shady in and see if he has anything left. Get Le'Veon Bell in there and see what he's got.
Yeah, it'll look like when Eddie George ended his career there in Dallas.
Yeah, bring Eddie in now. Let's see how that
works. It's crazy, because Jerry, he lives in the past. Everybody talks about the Dallas Cowboys have not won a Super Bowl since '95, and they're stuck in neutral since then. And yes, they are the most expensive team in the National Football League in terms of dollars and cents and making money. But in terms of on the field, that team has just got a lot to be desired for. And Kevin and I were talking about our preview last week of the NFC East. I kind of think they're going to finish in that third position. Mike, give me your thoughts on Washington. I think they're going to be a breakout team now. Kevin told me to pump the brakes. And what are you thinking in terms of Washington? And I think Jaden Daniels is going to breathe some life into them.
Well, I love Jaden Daniels, but you guys sound higher on Washington than I am. When I start every Cowboys conversation, I usually say 4 wins, 2 against the Giants, 2 against Washington. So build those right into whatever the Cowboys do because pure talent, they're just going to steamroll those guys. I like Jaden Daniels. I don't know who his left tackle is. I don't know what that offensive line looks like. Their secondary, they got improved in the secondary. That was the worst secondary I've ever seen last year. So I don't know if Jaden Daniels is ready to get into a lot of shootouts with some of these opponents that are going to, I think, light that secondary up. And when you go through all the guys they brought in, and I love a lot of the guys you brought in, but then you start really saying, well, what's this guy really bring to the table? What's Zach Ertz really got left right now? I don't think anything, honestly. What's Austin Eckler got? I mean, Eckler's fine, but he's probably just another third down back. And they had a guy, Antonio Gibson, probably wasn't that different. And when you start checking those boxes a little bit, what's Dante Fowler really bringing? He was a backup just coming off the bench on 3rd and long for the Cowboys. You start to deflate it a little bit, and they start to look like a rebuilding team. You like Jaden, you might like McCaffrey, Sinnott, these guys. It still looks like a rebuilding team that's going to be a year away from doing anything except beating the Giants.
Yeah. All right, maybe I'm wrong. That's what I love. I love on these shows you pull up the bar stool next to the guy and we all have fun, candid conversation. But the fun thing is we're going to see how it plays out on the field, and then a big thing is injuries. If injuries factor on any of these teams, it change in a heartbeat. So we're talking to Mike Tanier and Kevin Midgette as well, my co-host. We're on Coastal Sports Network 102.9 The Game. So glad that Mike could be here with us. Everybody knows Mike from New York Times, Football Outsiders. He's doing his own thing now. Check him out on X. You're still on there, right? I know you were kind of like, It's at Mike Tanier, right? You're still there. Okay.
I'm still there. I am kind of but I'm at Mike Tanner. I'm at Mike Tanner on Threads as well, and I do a little bit more football stuff over there on Threads, so you can check me out there. But I am still on X. I'm still trying to fight the good fight there and spread the positive word.
Yeah, and I definitely I'm going to check out that Threads because I knew you and Matt Lombardo, we were encouraging everybody to start using maybe that platform. And I know a lot of people have moved over there. So, well, we're glad talking with Mike. We're getting ready for the season. Finally, it'll be here in a couple of days. Thank goodness. It'll finally be the Ravens versus the Chiefs. This is going to be great to see. Now, Mike, I wanted to get you and Kevin's take on there's some quarterback battles still out there, and we thought these things were settled. I'll start with the Patriots. Jacoby Brissett has not looked very well in the preseason, and he's going against Drake May. Drake May has looked pretty good, but he's young. And I think they almost want May to kind of sit there and Brissett to kind of hold down the fort, until a couple weeks in this season. So what are you thinking in terms of that New England team?
Well, I think that Drake May has outperformed Brissett in the preseason. Jared Mayo said that. He said that this morning. But he said kind of like despite that, he wants to look at the full body of work. And, what he's talking about obviously is not just Brissett's performances and practices and joint practices and things like that, but the fact that he is a veteran and the things you just talked about. I'm going to read off the first 4 games on the Patriots schedule: at Bengals, Seahawks, at Jets, at 49ers. Now, when you think about going on the road against Super Bowl contenders, the Jets defense with those cornerbacks and that pass rush, Nick Bosa and the 49ers in that defense, that sounds to me like, hey, Brissett, go out there and hold down the fort so we don't ruin our rookie by week 5 of his rookie season and have a shell-shocked kid who's seeing ghosts like Sam Darnold, that kind of thing. That is probably what's going through Mayo's mind as he waits on this decision. You can bring in May and have him look like a hero once the schedule simmers down a little bit, whereas you put him out there right away, you could have a problem on your hands.
Yeah, Kevin, what's your take on that? I tend to agree with Mike. I just think the Patriots are going to be – they may have the number 1 overall pick. That's the way I'm looking when I look at this roster.
I agree with Mike. I agree with you. I think New England is one of the top 3 worst teams in the NFL this upcoming season. They're not going to be good. And you almost have to put Brissett in a Doug Peterson role when McNabb came. If you sit there and throw May out to these 4 teams, he could turn into another Tim Couch. He could be David Carr. I mean, you just ruin this kid from jump, and you can't afford to do that when you're New England because you're that bad, and you better have hoped you hit on this quarterback because you're right. They possibly could have the number 1 pick again next year.
Yeah. Their receiver core is terrible. Their receiving core, if you look at it, I mean, they brought in Jalen Polk, who's a pretty good prospect. But if you look at up and down, that's one of the worst receiving cores in the league, which means you're not going to have anybody open, which, again, for a rookie quarterback means holding the ball too long, trying to run, taking hits, forcing passes, making mistakes.
Yeah, and that offensive line is a work in progress, too. A lot of their guys have left over the years. I know a couple of them went to the Bengals, and I would tend to agree that the kid should probably just sit and wait for his own good. And in terms of the other one, this was one of the surprises of training camp, but Bo Nix played so well for the Broncos. They had no choice. Not that I thought Stidham or Zach Wilson were the answer. Bo Nix, is he going to be successful? I think the good thing is he gets the ball out of his hands very quickly.
Yeah, and I think that's what's going to happen. And Sean Payton designs things with lots of scripted short throws. And the expectations for most people for the Broncos aren't very high. So I think Nick's will be in a position. I don't know what successful means, but in terms of being somebody who won't get clobbered, won't hold the ball too long, won't make those mistakes, maybe game manage, some wins against teams like the Raiders on their schedule. I think that can be fine. I'm not putting him in any rookie of the year conversations just yet, but you can get out there and have some success. And you're right. There's a difference between Brissett, who started for several teams over the years, who's been a mentor for a lot of these different teams, and Stidham, who was just like, I don't even know how to describe him. This is just like the lowest level veteran that you have to overcome, and Nick's overcame him.
Yeah, he's no Nathan Peterman, but he's not much better. Every year I'm like, how does Nathan Peterman get a job? Talking about snark. You know what I mean? I don't know how. He's got pictures of somebody. I still remember the game where Sean McDermott decided to start him. I think he was trying to just help his draft position. He was just awful. So, Kevin, what are you thinking in terms of Knicks? And then we'll jump to another one with you. Talk about the Steelers. That's going to be an interesting one with Fields and Russell Wilson. I think they almost don't have a quarterback. So, first Knicks and then Steelers.
I agree that Nick probably should be the starting quarterback. The litany of names that you just mentioned with Wilson and Stidham, I mean, you have to start the kid. He does get rid of the ball quickly. It's one of those situations, if they finish above the Raiders in that division, that's a successful season for that team. And you take it with a rookie quarterback. You need to take these little baby steps, and each year, a little confidence for him going in the next season. Right. Now, switching to the Steelers real quick, you know what I'm going to say right now. The Steelers will finish at least, 8-1. Tomlin does not finish under 500. I don't know how he's going to do it, but he's going to do it. They got some work to do in Pittsburgh. They got to figure out who the guy is. And it's probably going to take the first 4 weeks of the season to figure it out, because we went over the Steelers' schedule a couple weeks ago, and that back end is loaded. So if they don't get out to a good start, Tomlin's going to have a struggle to finish 500 this year.
They'll go 7-7-3. That's how he's going to do it this year.
There it is.
A lot of ties, extra ties. It'll be like 1961 with all the ties.
Yeah, and they're going to need to run the football with Najee Harris. So, Mike, what are you thinking in terms of the Steelers? Early season at Atlanta, at Denver, the Chargers, at the Colts. They have Dallas on a Sunday night, at the Raiders. So they do have some games I think they could win. They're going to have to lean on that defense that you were talking about with T.J. Watt.
Yeah, a lot of winnable games, but on the road, which is interesting. And, you can say when you put Russell Wilson out there with your defense and your running game, you can game manage a bunch of victories. And that's what Mike Tomlin is thinking right now. Whereas you put Justin Fields out there, you're probably in this wild card situation in terms of, what he's going to bring to the table. I can't shake, based on what Tomlin said and the way Arthur Smith thinks, I can't shake the impression that we're not going to see some Justin Fields packages, some Taysom Hill type stuff with Justin Fields. Don't know if that's the right solution. It's intriguing, and I want to see it if that's what they have planned. But I think that's one thing we might see in the early season, where Russ is out there, and then when they need a change up somewhere along the way, they go to a Taysom type package and use Justin Fields.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea with him. Obviously, he led all NFL quarterbacks last year in rushing. I mean, he's a dynamic player, but as we said, the up and down nature of him, you just can't trust him to be your starting quarterback week in, week out right now. So, Mike, we're kind of – Kevin and I are going to look at our season-long predictions. So I'm going to throw a couple at you, and then Kevin can chime in as well. I'll throw in what I think as well. All right, MVP. There's a lot of candidates out there. I figure Aaron Rodgers will be in there. It's all quarterbacks. Let's start right there. So the quarterback I think is going to jump for the pack. It's probably a surprise, Jared Goff. So what do you think in terms of MVP?
I've been hearing a lot of people say that, and I kind of love it. The one thing is I can see Jared Goff having an MVP type season, and then it's Jared Goff overcoming this perception that no matter what he does, oh, you're just a system product. Like the voters are not immune to this mentality, but I like it. One guy I really have on my radar is Jordan Love. I think a lot of people have him on the radar as well, and I'm skeptical that he can just pick up completely where he left off in December, because that was Hall of Fame level stuff in November and December. But I also could see a thing where, no, he comes back to earth a little bit, but winds up right in the conversation now.
Sure. Kevin, you want to go now, or you want to reserve later? What do you want to do?
I'll go now. I'll go now.
Okay.
You're right entirely. It's a quarterback award. There's no doubt. I mean, shoot, Eric Dickerson breaks the rushing record, doesn't win MVP. I mean, there is certain things. It's like it's always going to quarterbacks, unless it's Mark Mosley or something like that. You sit there and look at it right now.
Anomaly.
You got to think about the fact most of the names that are being called out there, like the ones you expect. The two that we haven't mentioned just yet, and of course we just take Mahomes off the board because he's like the favorite every year anyway.
Right.
I like Joe Burrow. Give me a healthy Joe Burrow. Let me see what Joe Burrow can do. He has that swagger, that confidence that he can do that. And the question is also, is the offensive rookie of the year last year, C.J. Stroud, with the weapons he has now, what does he take this year? It's going to be interesting to see.
That's why I don't like MVP talk right now, because there's like a dozen pretty good guys. And Mahomes at the top. Like, yeah, those are all good. Those are all good choices. You got to pick one.
Yeah, and it's when we hit on all of them that are on my list here. Maybe I threw in Josh Allen there if he can cut down on his turnovers, but we know it's going to be all the quarterbacks sitting there on the NFL red carpet night. And we're here with Mike Tanier from Substack, and he used to be with Football Outsiders and the New York Times. We're so glad that Mike's here with us on the Coastal Sports Network 1029 The Game. This is Lloyd Vance's Insider Football. I'm here with my usual co-host, Kevin Midgette. We're going through season-long predictions. I'll jump to my next one now. They usually give this award as a default to the guy that did not win the MVP and is not a quarterback. So I'm talking about the offensive player of the year. And this one was interesting because a lot of names you could throw out there. And it's, we know it's a passing league, so a lot of my choices are receivers. Maybe you guys have somebody different, but I'm going to go with Justin Jefferson. I think he wants to live up to that big contract. The Vikings, it's going to be interesting. Can Darnold get the football to him and not turn it over? So we'll start with Mike Tanier. What do you think in terms of offensive player of the year?
I'm going to keep it simple with Tyreek Hill. Yeah, he's sort of a proven commodity in that he's going to get the cut touches. He's going to get the big plays. You kind of know his dynamic with Tua Tagovailoa and the offense there. And if it's a close call and he has a season like he's normally going to have, he's going to be a darling among the voters.
Yeah. What do you think, Kevin? Offensive player of the year.
Tyreek Hill would definitely been my pick, no doubt. But I'll go another way. I'll go dark horse. I'm probably wrong. But I'll throw out Breece Hall for the Jets. I think Breece Hall is going to get a ton of touches. And if he can stay healthy, he's going to rack up some yards. And you're playing in the media capital of New York City. He's going to get a lot of attention if he does.
Yeah, that's a good one. And that'll lend into the next award is, this guy stunk and now he's back, or he was hurt. The Comeback Player of the Year award. And I'm not going to mince it. I think it's going to be Aaron Rodgers. If he can stay upright, he only played 4 snaps last year. And Mike and I know we were both I don't know if he's still in the PFWA, but a lot of times the writers like veteran guys that are coming back from injury. So comeback player, I'll say Aaron Rodgers. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm looking right now. He's getting plus 140 odds. It's like such an easy narrative to say. He comes back, they make the playoffs. Who are you going to go with? And I'm looking for a fun, interesting sort of dark horse candidate here. I'll throw one out there. I mean, if I was betting, I would just bet on Aaron Rodgers and walk away. But if I was looking to do something a little tastier, Nick Chubb. Now he's starting the season on the PUP list, but they know that. They expect, I think, a week 4 return, etc. Imagine he comes back for a Browns team that needs a jolt, and he runs for 1,200, 1,300 yards and goes to the playoffs in a season where, let's say, Rodgers is in and out with injuries and like telling us about aliens putting stuff in our water supply or whatever, then it might switch to somebody else. And this is an award that a running back could definitely win because, we understand what they have to come back from and then tote that rock, 25 times a game.
Yeah. Kevin, who you got?
I'm all over Nick Chubb this year, to be honest. I was always a big Nick Chubb guy. My fantasy football money draft is on Wednesday. I'm trying to snatch him in the later rounds, trying to stash him myself. And once again, you got to go into the fact that Joe Burrow coming off injury. he's going to get a lot of attention as well. But Nick Chubb, I think that's the answer right there. Unless Aaron Rodgers goes off, so be it. That all bets are off. But I do like Nick Chubb.
Yeah, there's two other guys I'll throw in there as well, Anthony Richardson and Kirk Cousins. So they're coming off injuries. Now the great thing about Kevin, Mike, is I think he said he had 11 fantasy football teams. I don't know how he's going to keep track of all this stuff.
Yeah, I could.
I have enough.
I hang out with guys who are in that many leagues, and you'll sit there and you'll be watching the games with them, and they'll be like, "Well, I got to watch this and this, and I want that guy, but not that guy." And I'm like, How can you enjoy this? Like, if you got a quarterback, two running backs and two receivers, and you're going against, you can keep that straight. When it's like this serial killer bulletin board level of things, I don't know how you don't just like have an ulcer by the end of every Sunday.
And he's probably putting some cake on the games too. What do you think, Kevin?
Well, yeah, that as well. Yeah,
I'm not shy to throw a couple shekels down. That's for sure. It's one of those things you have to make sure to make it interesting for yourself. You can't pick the same guys for your team over and over again. It's like, all right, let me put this little matchup together. Let me do this one right here. But yeah, you have to be like the guy from A Beautiful Mind to figure all this out. There's no doubt. I'm confused on Sundays.
Right. I just give up and I'm just watching football. I've got no idea. Give me another beer. I can't figure this out.
Yeah, but the great thing is we finally are going to have something to watch. I was thinking, this past Sunday we're almost there. We're almost there. Now there's games all over the calendar now though, Mike. When you and I first started covering the league, it was what you had Sunday and a special game on Monday, but now you got Thursday, you got Friday. You even get Saturday games late in the season, a Sunday night or a Monday. And my wife's always like, another game? I'm like, oh, yes, it's wonderful.
But it is. And it's wonderful, but it can also be very tiring. They're putting them all over Christmas now. Even if Christmas is like a Wednesday, they're going to put a football game on for you. And it's like there's a Friday nighter, obviously, to start the season. The Eagles play on Friday night here. So it is wonderful for fans. And, we as football writers, if we want to complain about watching football, not only will the fans come after us and say, shut up, this is a dream job, but the baseball and hockey and basketball writers will come after us hard saying, oh, is a couple of games a week too rough for you? Would you like to go on a press junket to Edmonton and Calgary and Vancouver and follow the Flyers on the road for a while? No, thank you. So I'll take what I get from the NFL.
Yeah. And Kevin, do you think it's saturation? Or are we hitting the right spot?
Nah, the NFL's big money business, and there's a reason they went to 17 games, and they're going to go to 18 games, and there's money to be made. And once again, what is on every single commercial now that you see for the most part? Gambling sites. So if we have a game on each day, you're going to end up betting on two lower teams playing because they're the only game on. You normally wouldn't even looked at that game, but it's like, you know what? It's the only game on national TV today. Let's throw some money on this. They're not dumb. They're a billion dollar industry for a reason.
I do most of my betting on Thursday night because it's right there. It's one game. It's usually the Colts against the Bears or something that's like, oh gosh, the Saints against the Panthers. Oh my God. So let me put some action on this so I can stay focused. And again, you multiply that across Monday Night Football and Friday night and things like that. Viewers, eyeballs, dollars.
Yeah, and the thing is with Thursday night, if you win, you're always like, "Oh, I'll let it ride." I can turn this 100 into 1,000 by Monday night. Yeah, it usually goes the wrong way. I'm just saying, and it's funny when people find out what I do or whatever. They're always got the question. I was like, "Well, don't bet over your head." That's my biggest advice. So, and what do you think, Mike, in terms of the players now? They're saying they can't bet in the locker room, don't bet on your own team. The rules are very ambiguous. I think one of the Eagles just got back, Isaiah Rodgers. I think he got suspended for gambling before. Can you just talk about that in terms of the players? I think the players shouldn't be allowed to gamble at all. It lends to this too much,
Right. And the NFL agrees, and the NFL tries to build this wall around the potential for gambling on the NFL. But then if it's legal in your state, you can't tell somebody to not gamble on baseball or whatever else you're gambling on. I think there was a disconnect with a lot of these guys when they were sitting in their team headquarters and they were placing bets, maybe on NBA or whatever. But And they would come back straight facedly and say, "I didn't know I wasn't allowed to bet in team headquarters." And people would, on the internet would be like, "Well, how are these people supposed to know that they can't bet in team headquarters?" And like us old guys, it's like, you can't bet at work. I was a school teacher. You can't sit there. Hey, excuse me, kids. I'm doing some math right now, but I got a three-legged parlay I got to put. You can't do that. That's not a thing you can do. You don't want your doctor during surgery. Excuse me, I'm going to play some bets right now. You can't do it in any field unless you're, just out like cutting lawns or something like that. No one cares what you do. So, like, I think if we educate the players, and again, these are younger people who have had apps since birth, and they don't, and gambling has been legal since they were little or whatever. Make sure they know the rules. I think most of them will be okay following them, and we'll see less suspensions. And I hope no big scandals regarding gambling.
Right. Yeah. Well, I know, Mike, we're going to get you out of here soon, but I just want to, let's see. Give me, and Kevin, I'll go over it soon in a few minutes, your division winners on the AFC side. AFC East, who are you thinking about?
AFC East, I saw that, like, the Bills are no longer the favorites. People have the DraftKings has the Jets as favorites, so I'm going to take the Bills, and I think I can get like plus 150 or 175. I'm going to jump on that because I think the Bills are still the best team in that division.
I tend to agree with you, and I'll make my official tape picks in a minute. So I know Angel will be running. He'll be recording, and I'm always usually wrong. I always caution everyone against my picks. All right, AFC North. I was leaning one way earlier, but now, I'm thinking the Bengals may win this division.
Yeah, Aaron Schatz and the FTN Almanac and DVOA and that old Football Outsider stuff. They say Ravens, hammer it. I don't know. I don't know who Lamar's receivers are. They're counting on a lot of young players stepping up again for like the 8th consecutive year. I'm leaning towards the Bengals as well. I can understand. I know what their offense is going to look like. I know what their defense is going to look like. And if everyone's healthy, I know it's going to be pretty good. So I'm leaning Bengals.
All right. AFC West, I just saw the Chiefs re-sign Juju Smith-Schuster. Not that that's going to put them over the top. Well, what do you think? I think the Chiefs.
Yeah, they roll.
Yeah.
This is a team minimum 5-1 record inside that division, I think, and that just could propel them to home field advantage throughout the playoffs because they're not going to get beat up in their division.
Right. AFC South.
We all love the Texans, right?
Yeah.
No Texans.
I would think that's them.
Yeah.
And I'll do one more since Mike's on South Jersey. I know he's got a lot of Eagles followers. NFC East, what are you thinking?
I have to lean towards the Eagles right now. And I've seen the projections, and I've gone over, the analytics about the things that could be problems for the Eagles. You look at how aggressively they solved their problems this year, and you look at how aggressively Jerry Jones neglected his problems this year. It's hard to look at that with a straight face and not say, yeah, the Eagles have pushed themselves, maybe not up to the Niners, but they pushed themselves past the Cowboys.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely tend to agree with you. All right, Mike. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time, staying over a little bit longer. And, I'm sure we'll be talking during the season. Everybody check out all his stuff on Substack. And what's the podcast again you and Matt Lombardo are doing?
Matt Lombardo and I are in the Between the Hash Marks podcast. And that's going to be during the season. It's going to be every Monday, but it's going to be every Tuesday during the season, starting next week. You can find that there. And yeah, it's the Too Deep Zone Substack or just MikeTenier.substack.com, and you can find me and check it all out.
All right, great. I really appreciate you jumping on, and we'll talk down the line. All right, Mike. Talk to you later, man. All right, that was Mike Tenier. We're so glad to have him jump on Lloyd Vance's Insider Football here on 102.9 The Game, the Coastal Sports Network. We are going to pivot, me and Kevin, and we'll just keep going. We had Mike jump on and for our season-long predictions. We already talked about MVP. I'm saying Jared Goff. Kevin, what did you say?
I want Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow.
Offensive Player of the Year, the non-quarterback award, I call this one Justin Jefferson. I think he's going to be the guy. Kevin went with Brees Hall, I think.
Brees Hall is correct.
All right. Comeback Player of the Year. This is I was injured. I was terrible. Now I'm back. Award. I said Aaron Rodgers. And Mike Tanier was talking about, I mean, the odds are ridiculous for Aaron Rodgers, so I'm going to go with him there. Kevin, I think you were Nick Chubb.
I agree with Mike with Nick Chubb. I think Nick Chubb, like you said, if that Browns team, if he can catapult them and get them into the playoff spot, I mean, that's huge.
Yeah. Now, this is going to be a fun award to talk about, the Offensive Rookie of the Year. And Kevin and I have been bantering out names since the NFL draft, talking about some of these different guys. Before I get to the front line guys, there's a couple guys you're going to have to watch. I think Malik Neighbors, I think, is going to have a very good season for New York Giants. I think the Giants don't have much on paper. Obviously, it depends on what Daniel Jones does, but I think Malik Neighbors has the opportunity to have a lot of catches. Marvin Harrison Jr., I think he's going to get a lot of catches for the Cardinals. Maybe Kyler Murray can finally get on the page with a receiver. It's been a little bit for him, but Harrison is just such a big weapon. I think he's going to do well. But in terms of this award, I think it's a two-player race. You have Caleb Williams, who I just got done watching Hard Knocks. It was all about him. He looked great against the Buffalo Bills, and they're feeling confident that they could make that jump into playoff rounds. But I'm going to go with Jaden Daniels, despite what Mike was saying about the Commanders. They do have some holes in certain spots. I just think Daniels may run for more yards and have more of those flashy type plays that'll be on SportsCenter and all the NFL highlights. And I think Washington may be better than people think. So I'll go with Jaden Daniels for Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Well, we all know my thoughts and opinions on USC quarterbacks. That being said, though, it's Caleb Williams. If he puts up decent numbers, he's going to get all the attention from being the number one pick, all the hoopla that came with him, and the fact if the guy can back it up, I think he's your Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, and that's going to be a fun race because there's so many young players coming to the league now, and they expect them to step on the field and make a difference because they're not waiting anymore. And I'll throw another name out there is Xavier Worthy. That's going to be interesting with him because, Rice could have space of suspension, and some of the other receivers on that team are their second-line guys. And I think Worthy with his speed, everybody knows he broke the combine record in terms of being the fastest player ever there. I think he's going to be able to make some big plays down the field. Obviously, he has the best quarterback out of anybody throwing the football in Patrick Mahomes. So that's going to be a fun award to watch. Now, Defensive Player of the Year, a lot of people just always forget about it. But there are a couple names I'm going to throw out there. The Vikings drafted defensive end Dallas Turner from Alabama. I think he's going to get a lot of sacks, and a lot of times that is what gets you on the radar. You have the Rams, Jared Verse from Florida State. I think he could be a good player. And the dark horse, and my younger son, Braden, was talking about this, the Lions cornerback, Teron Arnold. He thinks he could be a player that could make some big-time plays. And if the Lions play the way that we all think they will, he's going to get a lot of exposure. And the last candidate I'll throw out there before my pick is Dolphins Russian Chop Robinson from Penn State. The Dolphins need that guy to step forward because they've had Phillips coming off an injury, and they need somebody on the other side. So I think he's going to get his opportunities. But I'll go with the Colts defensive end, Leatu Latu from UCLA. He's already had a pretty good preseason where he's able to turn the edge, get after the quarterback, and I think he can get double-digit sacks, and that could be a key to him getting a Defensive Rookie of the Year. So, Kevin, any of those names strike you, and who's your pick?
Chop Robinson was the one I was going with. That's the one I think everyone's leaning towards, Dallas and also Jared Verse. Those are the two forerunners right there. But Chop Robinson, I think, is the one that could actually take it.
Yeah, and the Dolphins, they're going to be an interesting team because they need their defense to step up. We all know that Tua has all the weapons galore, but that defense, there's some question marks there. And if they want to catch the Bills, if they want to compete with the Jets, This is a pretty good division outside the Patriots. They're going to need those young defenders to step up. All right, this one's fun too. The Defensive Player of the Year. So many names to look at. Obviously perennial favorites: T.J. Watt, Miles Garrett, Max Crosby, Michael Parsons, who's trying to get a new contract. We talk about Nick Bosa. He's in the mix as well. I'll throw in the other Josh Allen, who's now Josh Hines Allen for the Jaguars. He's a pretty good player, too, as well. Chris Jones from the perennial Chiefs contention team, Super Bowls. But I'm going to go with Aiden Hutchinson. Now, the Lions, if they play the way we think, he's their linchpin guy on their defense. And I think he could get 14, 15 sacks, and that'll put him on everybody's radar to be Defensive Player of the Year, force some fumbles. So I'll go with him.
Yeah, the names that you mentioned, it's like, just to play devil's advocate, it's like you have Chris Jones just signed a big contract. It's like, okay, once again, every time I see somebody sign a big contract, it's like, what are you bringing to the table next year now? Especially you got the rings and everything else. Max Crosby, who I think is unbelievable. That being said, next to the New York Giants, they might have the worst quarterback group in the NFL. That guy, the defense is going to be on the field a lot. So it depends on how many points they give up. You can't, give the guy Defensive Player of the Year, even though he's awesome, but you're giving up 30 points a game because you're always on the field. When in doubt, T.J. Watt. That guy is just a freak of nature on the field, and Pittsburgh plays that ugly style of football where they're all going to be low-scoring games.
Yeah, he'll probably get 20 sacks, and if he gets a couple picks, takes one at the house, he definitely could be the leader in the clubhouse. I thought he was going to win it last year, and then he got kind of banged up. Health is always a big thing with him because he's a lighter guy, but he's going up against those big offensive tackles. But, yeah, I think it's the usual suspects. And then maybe you throw in like a Sauce Gardner from the Jets. He's going to have a lot of picks. And a lot of times with DBs, they're thrown to the other side of the field. So it's kind of hard for them to make those splash plays. So Defensive Player of the Year, a lot of it does factor in terms of the team and where they are. So, all right, we got through all the postseason awards. Let's start talking about, and hopefully you made your list, the divisions. And it's interesting because you and I recorded a lot of division winners earlier, and I'm not going to lie to you. I've had to rethink some of them before I put it on paper. We'll start in the AFC East. Mike and I were kind of of the same mind with this one. The Bills have won this division, 4 straight years. And the reason I'm going to pick them again is the other teams in this division. I still think Miami is kind of incomplete defensively, even though they're going to score a ton of points. Last year they were second in the NFL in points. I just think their defense is not going to hold up over the long haul. And then the Jets, we're really not sure when Aaron Rodgers is going to show up in this one. He's still coming off that Achilles injury. He's 41 years old. Everybody hopes he's the next Tom Brady and able to put up big stats at that age. But I think there's still the Bills' season this season in the AFC East.
I will actually go in a different direction. I'm saying the Miami Dolphins win this division. I'm just saying it for the fact that you are right. We don't know what Aaron Rodgers is going to bring to the table. The guy pretty much hasn't played in about 2 seasons now. So what he's going to do in the field is a big question mark. Going to Buffalo, I just don't think they have enough offensively. I think the wide receivers that they lost is going to be huge. And I think Miami's ready to take that division now.
And that's gonna be a fun one to watch. And Miami's going to take that step up. Tua is the guy. It's all on his shoulders. He's gotten lighter. He did play every game last season, but it's down the stretch. Those last games where it gets colder outside, they may not be in Miami, where they got to step forward because you saw how they played in Kansas City and Buffalo last year. So that's going to be an interesting one. AFC North, I think we both picked the Bengals, and Joe Burrow is the best quarterback in this division. You always hate to boil down to that. The team has the best quarterback wins the division, but they have a lot that they've been working on in terms of their offensive line, redoing that. I'm interested to see, will they still have a running game, even though Mixon is with the Texans. I think that Jamar Chase is ready for a big season. They do got to figure out his hold-in situation. I think they'll get that all figured out now that CeeDee Lamb got his contract. But I think it's the Bengals in this division. I was leaning towards the Steelers in the past, but their offensive line play with rookie Broderick Jones has just been so shoddy. And then the quarterback play, we talked about that earlier. So quickly, what do you think about the AFC North?
I agree with the Bengals as well. Once again, it always comes with the caveat if everyone's healthy with Cincinnati. It's like anytime we talk about the Bengals, if everyone's healthy is what you lead with. The running back situation is going to be interesting with Zach Moss and Chase Brown. I think Brown ends up emerging at some point as being the guy who can catch the ball out of the backfield and getting a couple more carries than maybe Zach Moss. I think Zach Moss fades out.
Yeah, and that's going to be fun to watch. And Tyler Boyd's also in another place, and then you wonder about what's going to happen with T. Higgins. AFC West, I think we're all of the same mind where we talk about the Chiefs. The interesting thing of the Chiefs, and we'll get that in a few minutes, can they three-peat? They just have so much firepower. They all seem to be on the same page. They have the best quarterback. Spagnol's dialing up that defense. And then when you look at the rest of the team in this division, they're all big question marks. We talked about Denver earlier. Bo Nix starting at quarterback. The Raiders probably going to be really bad with Minshew. And then the Chargers, already, they're disappointing. Herbert's beat up, but they do have Harbaugh coming in there trying to bring the Michigan way. What do you think about the AFC West?
I think the AFC West as a collective unit is probably the second worst in football. I think you have one team, you have two basement teams, and one team like the Chargers that are just middling in the middle trying to find their way. I don't think there's a lot of competition in that division, and when Mike was on earlier, 5-1, they will go in that division easily. Possibly 6-0, maybe 5-1. No worse than that.
Yeah, and I would definitely agree with you. Now the AFC South, Mike said, very matter-of-factly, and I kind of agree with him. He's like, we all like the Texans, but the thing is, the reason you like the Texans, they're a young ascending team. You talk about offensively what they put together in terms of Diggs and Nico Collins and Tank Dell, and now they have Mixon at the running back position, Larry Tunsil on the offensive line, and that group's getting better. And defensively, nobody ever talks about their defense, but they have Will Anderson, and I really like their linebackers who are short tacklers, and then their secondary is a little better than people give them credit for. So I think it's going to be the Texans in this division. And in terms of, I don't think anybody else from this division kind of makes the playoffs. I think, as you were saying, it's very top heavy with the Texans. And then, maybe the Colts rebound with Anthony Richardson. We have to see what he can do. They've already had some injuries. I think the Titans are kind of down with Levis. And then the Jaguars, Lawrence got the bag, but I just don't think he's the guy.
I think Jacksonville's that team to watch in that division, actually. I like some of the things they've done. Dougie P's the coach. Do I think they win the division? No. But I think they're a playoff team. I think they're that fringe playoff team that gets the last spot. The Colts are the big enigma. I mean, Richardson, what's he going to bring to the table? Is he going to wow you, or you're going to be like, oh, there's a guy who's missed over a year of football right there? And I think we can all agree Tennessee is playing for next year already.
All right. And then my wild cards in the AFC, I have the Ravens, who I think take a step back from being a division winner, but they still have enough firepower in terms of their rushing ability. They've led the NFL in rushing the last couple of years. Bringing in Derrick Henry, they're going to lean on him. Obviously, we know how good their defense is. It was top 2 in the league. So I think the Ravens get one of the wild card spots. I'm going to go with the Jets as one of my wild cards. I think that Aaron Rodgers stays healthy enough. And you talk about the talent they've assembled. Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, who we didn't talk about, but he's an explosive player. And then defensively, they have all the names there. Maybe Robert Salah could save his job and make the playoffs. Surprisingly, I know this is crazy, but I think the Steelers, once again, might get that last spot in the AFC. Tomlin does just enough, maybe just over 500 to get that team in the playoffs. But they're my 3 wild cards: Baltimore, Jets, Steelers.
It's pretty good. Baltimore, definitely I have on that one right there. Since I just mentioned Jacksonville, I'll throw them back in there again. Well, I'll go Baltimore, Jacksonville, and since, let's see, I have Miami winning the division, I'm going to say the Jets. I think the Bills miss out. I'll pull the dark horse on that one.
Wow.
Buffalo misses the playoffs after everything.
Yeah, Nate's somewhere crying when you're saying that. It's funny. I just moved him in his dorm room. He has his big Buffalo Bills flag up there, and it reminded me of Remember the Titans. His roommate was like, "Oh, take that down, man. I'm not going to be looking at that all semester." But yeah, if they don't make the playoffs, he's going to be very upset. But it could happen because the key is Josh Allen in terms of protecting the football and who's boom or bust, and is a younger Cook ready to roll as their starting running back? And then how is losing Diggs going to affect this team? Is Keon Coleman ready to be a number one receiver or whoever else they have there? So question marks with the Bills. I kind of was leaning towards them in the division because they just, they've gotten it done in the past, but they have a tough road other than the Patriots, obviously, to play. So that's going to be interesting. We're doing our season-long predictions here on Lloyd Vance's Inside Football here with Kevin Midgette. We're on 102.9 The Game, the Coastal Sports Network. So glad everybody could join us for another week. Angel doing a great job behind the glass. We had Mike Tanier on earlier, former Football Outsiders, New York Times guy, veteran guy. Check him out at Mike Tanier on X. You can catch Kevin. He is Philly Kevin on X, and I'm at Lloyd Vance there as well. So definitely give us all a follow. We're very excited entering the season. We're a little over a week away from our first game. And then, as we said, the first one would be the Ravens versus the Chiefs. And then there's going to be a Friday game. And Kevin, it's funny because I got 3 family members. They're Eagles. Well, one of them, is not an Eagles diehard, but 3 of them are going. 3 of my cousins are going down to Brazil for the game.
Really?
Yeah. What do you think about all that? Would you take that road trip?
If I'm in my 20s and I have the means to make that trip, do I do it? Absolutely. As someone now past the age of 40, am I making that trip? I'm good. I'm good for week 1 to go down there. I mean, I don't know. I just think I just ended up in your 20s. You didn't know any better. You just went and did stuff. We live in a day and age now where we have big screen TVs. We don't have to wait for the bathroom. That's paying $15-20 for a beer. The parking. It's just like you just get a little older. It's like that seems like a lot of pain, especially now. I got to catch a flight. I'm sure a connecting flight. I've got to make sure I don't lose my luggage. There's a lot of things going on to say I'm good.
Yeah, and to me, it's a disposable income trip. Some of my cousins, their kids are grown, so I said, all right, well, if that's where they want to take their vacation, fine. To me, I still want to go to a resort where I put my feet up, they bring me drinks. So, but that's just me. All right, back to our divisional round previews. I'll save the NFC East for last. We'll go with the NFC North. I think everybody can kind of see who I'm leaning towards in terms of my awards picks. I just think it's going to be a big year for the Lions. It came so close last year in terms of, they were tooth and nail with the Niners. I forgot about that. I rewatched that game the other day. They had a nice lead on them, and they kind of fell apart. But when you look at all the weapons they have on that team, Mon-Ra, St. Brown, they have 2 very good running backs. Jared Goff is sneaky good. I'm finally coming around to that. I know Nate always says, "Oh, Dad, you said he stunk." Well, I was wrong. Jared Goff's a good player, so I think he's going to have a good season, and it's going to be fun to watch him because, as we were talking about, I think the Bears are going to be better this season. We know the Vikings and their quarterback situation is going to be kind of tough for them, and then the Packers. Packers are going to be within a game, I think, of the Lions. So I'll go with the Lions in the NFC North.
I like the Lions as well. I do think the Packers are breathing down their backs. Dan Campbell's his own worst enemy. He just has to sit there and not just get this bullheaded ideas when he's out on the field sometimes. He just like going for it instead of kicking field goals and going for 2-point conversions. It's like, take what they're giving you, don't push the issue. But he's done an unbelievable job turning that team around, though. There's no doubt about it, and I think they win the division this year.
Yeah, and it's going to be fun to watch, because he's a madman, and he plays on fire. Hopefully they can get that defense under Aaron Glenn to kind of play that way as well. All right. coming down on time, so we'll move quickly. The NFC West, I have the LA Rams stepping forward this season. I think as long as Stafford can be healthy, they're another team. They had McVay out there. They've kind of retooled the offensive line, a lot of offensive weapons. And I think, it may be time for San Francisco to take a step back. So I'm going to go with the Rams in the NFC West.
The Rams are definitely one of those teams that's contingent upon Stafford's health, much like the Bengals are with Burrow's health. They'll go as far as those guys will take them. I still think San Francisco has one more run in them. I think this is their last year to make that Super Bowl push to get over the hump. And the other teams in the division, Arizona and Seattle, they're just, once again, playing for bottom at this point. But Rams and Niners, I have the Niners slightly ahead of them.
Yeah, I think two-team race there. And NFC South, this one really wide open. We know Tampa Bay's won this the last 2 seasons, one with a losing record. But I think this year it's the Falcons season. As long as Kirk Cousins can be healthy, he's going to be driving the football down the field to Drake London. He's got Bijan Robinson. They've redone that defense, bringing in Judon to go with Jesse Bates and the rest of those guys. So I think the Falcons have enough to win a very bad division.
I agree with you, actually. I think the Falcons win this division as well. I just don't think those other teams can really match them on the field as far as like scoring capabilities. I don't think Tampa Bay can hang numbers like that. I think New Orleans is too spotty depending on Carr up and down the field. Kirk Cousins, say what you want to about the guy, he puts up regular season numbers. And I think that Atlanta's offense is going to carry him.
Yeah, and if you're playing fantasy football, you definitely, I think, want to get some Falcons on your roster. And I know they lost Rondale Moore, but they have Mooney there. They have a lot of playmakers on that offense, and I think Zach Robinson bringing over that Rams playbook is going to open things up. We saw Arthur Smith kind of hold back this unit last year, so it's going to be fun to watch. In NFC East, we're both I think we're all leaning the same way. We're not being Eagles homers here, but I just think on paper, the Philadelphia Eagles roster is just loaded. They've continued to fill all their holes while getting better. You just think about that move the other day, bringing in the receiver from Washington to go with Smith and Brown. They're just so explosive. And the only thing you have to worry about is there enough balls for every player on the offensive side of the ball. And then defensively, they allowed a lot of points last year, but I think they fixed a lot of things. The big question mark is, can they get enough pass rush and their linebackers? But I think the Eagles win this, and I think Dallas takes a step back. Everyone knows how high I am on Washington. Obviously, the Giants, they're probably the basement. So what do you think about NFC East?
I think it's a foregone conclusion the Eagles win this division on paper. They just have the talent. They have more talent than any other team in that division. And once again, the injury thing. I mean, Jalen Hurts gets injured, and all of a sudden the backup. That goes for any team, though. Any team where the backup has to come in for an extended period of time changes your whole trajectory of your season. But the Eagles should have this division won by the end of November, early December.
Yes, and then it's going to see, okay, is Sirianni up to the task to be a frontline head coach? We know he has a record. I think he's 34-17 in his career. But he's got to be the CEO type. He's got to let Kellen Moore do his job, Vic Fangio, and that'll help his team. So that's going to be real interesting with the Eagles. But definitely, I think that as long as they're healthy with all these picks, that's the key thing, that they should win that division. Now, my wild card picks, it was interesting. I wrote some down, and I was like, as we were talking, I was like, The wild card, I have Washington, Chicago, and I'm going to go with the Packers as my wild card pick. So, a bunch of young teams stepping forward.
Okay, I'll throw out the Packers as well. Let's put them in there. I like the Rams also. And to be honest, I got to throw the Cowboys in there. I think for somehow they do something to make the playoffs. It's not going to be like a splashy, sexy 12-win season, but I think they can sneak into the playoffs and grab that last spot.
It's going to be interesting with the Cowboys. Do they save Mike McCarthy's job? All of them on one-year contracts, and we'll see. So, and I'll throw it out there. Super Bowl pick, I got the Chiefs and the Lions. You don't have to give me the winner. Who do you think?
Let's see.
Or is it too early?
Let's go with San Francisco. San Francisco gets back there, and San Francisco this time. Let's go replay. I got the Bengals. San Francisco and the Bengals. Let's see it again.
Wow.
Let's see the Bengals and Niners again.
That would be an interesting one. So another great week here on Lloyd Vance's Inside Football. All the picks are out there, and I'll put them up on X later on. You know, all my picks that hopefully I wrote them down because I don't want to change. And everybody always says, "Oh, Lloyd, you said one thing on the air and you put it out on X as something else." So we'll make sure we have it all in black and white. We'll see how it all turns out. Usually I'm wrong, though, like I said. But another great week here on Lloyd Vance Inside Football on 102.9 The Game. Coastal Sports Network. We want to thank Mike Tanier jumping on. Check him out on Substack. I want to appreciate Kevin as well for another week. We will be off the air next week because Labor Day weekend. Angel did a great job behind glass, and we will talk to you down the line after week 1 of the National Football League.